They were enjoying your story.
Thank you so much for coming. Good to see a good turnout this time. Beautiful weather, and so everybody's here for public speaking. Why do you all want to be here? Just shout it out. Why? Improve your skills. Me too. What else? Anybody from over here?
You will the pitch portion of EagleWorks.
Pitch portion of EagleWorks. Very good.
What this guy said.
Yeah. A little worried about that?
You know. Okay.
Yeah. By a quick show of hands, who's EagleWorks in here? All right. Very good. Very, very good. Well, without further ado, for you all that haven't seen him before, this is Brandon Smith, and he's going to be he's going to lead our presentation today. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this.
Glad to be here again.
I'm personally really looking forward to it because I do a lot of public speaking and I want to improve my skills as well. So
No pressure.
without further ado,
Thanks,
Smith.
y'all. So, for those of you whom I have not met before, some of you guys we met at the last session. Some of you I know from other places. But for those of you whom I've not had the opportunity of meeting, my name is Brandon Smith. I work with Putnam County 911 and EMS. I'm a 911 dispatcher and a paramedic by trade. It's what I do all day, every day. Have a few different responsibilities in there, none of them that you care about. What I usually tell people when I start my introductions is that I spend my day answering calls from people or responding to people who woke up this morning and said it'll never happen to me. Who woke up this morning, were going about their day-to-day life and never thought it would happen to them. Now, I'll tell you why that's so important in just a minute as we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about. But as we go through this, I am by no means an expert at public speaking. I've just done a lot of it, and apparently Michael likes the way I do some of what I do. So I'm going to try to impart some of that wisdom on you. I'm going to try to share with you some of the advice that I've learned over the years, some of the pitfalls that I've learned over the years, and I'm going to walk you through how I develop a presentation from the time I get started with the concept all the way through to when I'm standing in front of an audience and how to make that work. I speak to groups from pre-K kids, kindergarten kids, all the way up to senior citizen centers on a wide variety of topics. So as we go through this, if you have questions about anything, please ask me those questions. Please understand that your cell phone will be my friend if it bugs the other people in the room. I'm not shy about that. So as we go through the presentation, again, like I said, I'm just going to give you ideas and I'm going to talk to you about things that I do, the way that I work through what happens. The first thing you have to have is some sort of a stage presence. You can see that by this picture. You'll notice a couple of things about this picture when we come back to it at the end, but I put the subtitle on here, it's not about their underwear. Because how many of you have heard people tell you, just picture them in their underwear? Have you seen some of the audiences you will be speaking to throughout your life? You don't want to picture all them people in their drawers because it's going to be ugly and it gets rough. And if you're nauseated the whole time you're speaking, that's what detectives call a problem. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about the preparation. The very first thing you have to do is figure out what you're going to talk about, why you're going to talk about it. When we talk about the preparation side of things, that starts with the audience. The first thing I try to figure out, Michael said, hey, I want you to come do a topic on public speaking. I want you to come do a pop-out on that. I said, okay, who's going to be hearing it? That's the first question that I ask. Are these going to be college students, or are these going to be college professors who stand in front of people all day long? Are these going to be business professionals? Who are these people that are going to be listening to what I'm saying? Because the message that I give has to be tailored to that group, does it not? It would make no sense whatsoever if I came in here to this room knowing that half the room is EagleWorks and the other half are students that are going to be up in front of groups speaking. It would make no sense for me to come in and tell you how to run a WebEx, would it? How to sit here and run a web conference and talk to people and present to people from your home computer. So that ain't what we're going to do. You have to tailor that to the people. The next thing you have to understand is the room. The last time I spoke in this room, I was here about, 4:20, 4:25. Came in, I set the room up for success. If you notice, I moved these chairs off to the side. I'm a pacer, I'm a mover, I'm a walker. If I start walking up here, first of all, the people watching on film right now, the people watching the video, do not like what they see. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one out there. But is it awkward for you guys sitting up here in the front? Yeah, because this ain't the side of me anybody needs to be looking at, right? There ain't nothing precious about that. So I stand in front of the room. I try to move to the room. As I speak, I stand in front of the room and I move to the room. If you are in a place where you can't do that, let's say I couldn't get there and I'm stuck back here, this is the enemy. Anything between you and the people you're speaking to is the enemy. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but I'll go ahead and tell you, if you stand behind a podium to speak, because I'm just more comfortable, I can lean on something, then you don't need to be up there talking. Because you lose 90% of your effectiveness of your presentation when you cover up your body language. Everything that makes you successful once you're in the room is right here. The way that my face looks, I can't do nothing about that, but the way my face looks when I make a certain face or I create a phrase, and when it comes out, if I kind of smirk, then you know I'm joking compared to if I'm not joking, if I'm making a dead serious point. My gestures, everything that is the success of this presentation is going to be behind that podium. And we have to venture away from that. This picture, I use this picture, I'll go ahead and tell you a couple of my secrets, okay? I choose my photos, and we'll talk more about slides in just a minute, but I choose my pictures that are on my slides based off what's in the picture. I don't just pick something to represent what I want, okay? Especially my very first slide that gets me started. I start with this picture. What this picture tells me are the things that I need to point out while I'm on this slide, okay? And you don't see that yet. But what's the first thing I told you need to know about where you're going and why you're speaking? The people, right? See all these people sitting right here? The people are sitting at tables. The tables tell me that I need to talk to you about how the room is set up. You see this guy standing up here back in the back corner speaking? His name's Bob. So Bob's standing back there doing his presentation. That tells me that I need to tell you to pay attention to the key players who are going to be at your presentation. If I didn't know Mr. Aiken's name, it would be really awkward. You've all had those presentations where somebody's in front of the room talking and they say, and your teacher says this, or your teacher probably, right? That's annoying, isn't it? Don't you lose a little bit of that connection when they don't even know the name of the people that are in the room with you every single day? So know that. Know those key players in the room. Know the bigwigs in the room. If you have people in the room, for those of you doing your Shark Tank presentations, you're going to have people that are in the room that you need to know their names, right? Call them by name. Don't say, I would like to thank all of you for coming today. Say, I would like to thank Mr. Aikens, I would like to thank Ashlyn, I would like to thank Jacqueline for your time today and moving away from your busy schedules to help us with this. You see the difference in those two? And you've all probably been a part of that at some point or another. So understand that there's a huge difference in connecting with those people in the room and just standing up front of the room giving a talk. Because I can stand up here and give this talk all day long. But how many of you have fallen asleep in class with people who do that? Anybody? Yeah, the rest of you are lying. Thank you. So the other thing that this tells me, Bob's holding a sheet of paper in his hand. When we get finished, I'm going to give you my outline for this presentation. I build my presentations based off of an outline. And when you look at this presentation, or when you look at this outline, you'll see why this is such a big deal to me. On my outline, every one of my major points is its own bullet. It's the Roman numeral. It's a Roman numeral 1, 2, or 3 in my outline. For each Roman numeral, big number, one slide. Everything else comes underneath that. Okay? So that reminds me to tell you about the outline. Reminds me to show you how I set that presentation up. If you see this guy sitting right back here, you see what he's doing? He's eating. Mr. Todd standing back there with a big old plate of barbecue. What that tells me to remind you is that you got to get some sleep. You got to take care of yourself. The night before your presentation, you have to get some sleep. You have to get food in your belly. If you are standing up in front of the room and you're starved to death and your stomach's growling louder than your voice is, that's going to be problematic, is it not? So you see how all those little hidden things in the room tell me the points that I need to remember. The reason that I do that, I don't care what kind of audience you're speaking in front of, I don't care how comfortable you are. When you first get started, there's some bit of nerves that's always there, is there not? Just at least a little bit of, I hope they don't kill me while I'm standing up here, right? So what I do is I plant that very first slide to give me all the cues I need, and you had no clue all that stuff was hidden in the picture when we got to it. But if I just turn and I look at my slideshow, it tells me all those things I need to talk about. The technology in the room will be your greatest friend or your biggest enemy. Straight up honesty. Has anybody in here had experience with technology where technology totally failed you? So here's what I'll tell you about technology. Mine is set up, I have 3 systems that are set up here and they're ready to go. So I have my presentation that's up on the main screen that's plugged in. I have my laptop plugged into the power source so I don't lose power. It's ready to go. And on my iPhone, which is charged at greater than 50%, is the very same presentation that we're looking at. If the computer goes down, I pull the VGA cable out of the back of it. I plug it into my laptop. Here we go. If my laptop fails me for some reason, the whole presentation is downloaded on the phone. It's not in the internet world where I have to download. It's already sitting on the phone ready to go. And I just get my adapter out, plug that into the VGA cable, and here we go. You need to understand the difference between what is an HDMI connector, what is a VGA cable, what is a DV connector, digital video, what is SD, what are all those different cables, component cables, also called RCA cables. What are all those different cables and what do they mean? Because there's nothing more annoying than a presenter who shows up and the presentation doesn't start on time because they're fumbling and they have 4 different people, they're waiting on the IT guy to come from down the hall to show them how to hook their stuff up. The presenter's job is to be there and be ready when people start showing up. So when Ashlyn and I were here before anybody else got here, she's getting her camera ready, I'm getting my slides ready. I'm ready to go so that the first people who show up at the door, I'm ready for. The number 1 place that every presentation you will ever give is going to fail is in the preparation stage. If you don't know your content, it doesn't matter how cool your slideshow is. It doesn't matter the transitions you have. It doesn't matter the sound effects you have. It doesn't matter if you have the President of the United States that you're going to Skype to on slide number 3 in your slide and do it live. None of that matters if you don't know it's there. So the number 1 thing I will tell you about any presentation you're ever going to give is to know your content and know it well. I know this well enough that if the power goes out in this building, I'm going to keep talking. I know it well enough that if I lose my place, I have an outline setting here and I have an outline setting here. You're all right, you can keep it. I don't need it. I just told you that. But I have outlines that are sitting there. Most of you didn't even notice that. You noticed I laid papers down, but you didn't pay much attention to what it was. I can walk around the room, I can speak, I can talk. If I ever lose my place, I know exactly which slide I'm on because of the way I use my outline format. Does that make sense? So know your content and know it well. I was standing in front of a group. This was about, this was about 4 years ago. It was school time. School was coming back into session. It was teacher in-service day. I had an auditorium. How many of you guys ever been to Cookeville High School? Anybody been inside Cookeville High School? Okay. So Cookeville High School's auditorium holds, I want to say it's right at 500 people because we can fit a class. It may be more like 700. The auditorium was full. Standing room only in the back. Okay? Everybody's walked into that kind of room before, right? I walk up to the room and I am speaker number like 5 of the morning. I am the only thing that stands between them and going to lunch then home. I walk up, turn my laptop on, plug it in, get everything set while the other speaker's finishing up, and it was just like we were talking a little while earlier, Ashlyn. Installing 1 of 73 updates. Holy crap. What am I going to do now? 1 of 73 updates. Everybody knows how slow Microsoft updates go, right? True story. So I sat there and I thought, okay, well, what's next? So I got my phone. I didn't have that presentation on my phone. Then the projector bulb goes crazy. This is the perfect storm. What did I do? Turned it all off and I lived up to my initials. My initials are BS, so I stood up there and I just blurted it out. There it was. I slung it out there like a bag of airplane peanuts, whether they wanted to hear it or not. There it was. They were getting every bit of it. And it was flawless. You know why? Because I knew my outline. I knew my content. And if all else failed, I had a copy of it in my pocket that I could pick up and I could say, okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is preparing your slideshow. I was ready for that. Didn't faze me a bit. I don't know why I did that. I didn't do it on purpose. But I was ready for that. Your preparation is where you will spend 5 times more of your time than you will standing up in front of that audience. 5 times more than you will doing research or any other part of it. Because if it is truly a good presentation, for every hour that you present, you will spend at least 4 to 6 hours putting the presentation together, doing the outline, finding the right pictures to match the right slide. And that's where I struggle, because I'm slightly retentive about those things, and I want to make sure that I have just the right picture to portray exactly what I'm talking about. Any questions on preparation? If you miss any of those steps, you're gonna feel the pain of it. If you don't know your audience, if you don't realize what room you're gonna be speaking in, and you show up to a shack with a dirt floor and no PowerPoint projector, oops, probably should have done a little more homework. I go to the extent of, I'll go days ahead of time. If I've never been to that room before, if I can, I'll go days ahead of time. I travel all over the state doing stuff with the Tennessee School Safety Center and talking about social media with kids. You'll see some of that in just a minute. But if I get to the county I'm going to before school closes, or like before 4:30, 5 o'clock when everybody leaves, I'll go to the school and go see the room that I'm going to be in and figure out what I'm up against. Get my mind right, because the next morning when I show up, it's showtime. And it's 100 miles an hour from the time that you show up. If you don't know your content before you show up, you're done. It's not going to work. Make sense? Questions? So the second thing that I will tell you is, after you get through getting your presentation together, the most important sales pitch you're going to make is not going to be your Shark Tank sales pitch, okay? When you guys get up in front of your EagleWorks crew and you're giving your pitch, that's not the most important pitch. The most important thing you're going to say is the introduction, because you got to hook them right off the bat. Get up there and tell people who you are, tell them what you do, and then tell them why they give a crap that you do that. So did you catch my introduction? I gave you one big hook that was above all else. I told you that I'm a 911 dispatcher. I told you that I'm a paramedic. And what did I tell you I spend my days doing? Obviously you didn't listen that well, or you're scared of public speaking. Anybody in here terrified of public speaking? Totally terrified, like you wet yourself if you have to get up in front of the crowd? Yeah, not forced. So what did I tell you? I spend my days doing what? Answering the call for people who woke up this morning and said what? Now, how many of you, when I said that, went, holy crap, he's the real deal. He actually does that. That's the hook. Because when you start talking to people, they're not going to care how much you know until they know what? How much you care. And when they know how much you care, they know why you're there and why you're doing what you're doing. So tell them who you are, tell them what you do, but most importantly, don't give them the whole big list. I didn't give you the whole list and tell you that I'm Assistant Director of Special Services for 911, and I'm the Public Safety Coordinator for Putnam County EMS. I'm a volunteer with the Rescue Squad. I used to be a flight paramedic, used to work at the National Superspeedway. I didn't tell you that I am a contractor for the Tennessee School Safety Center, that I go around the state speaking about social media. I go around the state doing site visits. I'm responsible for public education, public information, media relations, special event planning, disaster preparedness, the Putnam County Emergency Alert Systems, and the county's Emergency Operations Center. Now, why didn't I tell you that in my introduction? Because you don't care, do you? What do you care about? Why is he telling me about speaking in public? That's all you care about. So what mattered to you was that hook to get you to understand that I care, and that's why I'm standing. Make sense? So find your hook. Whatever it is, make them understand why you are the person that's standing in front of them. Give them the short version. Give them the snapshot. You're not going to tell them up front that y'all didn't understand that I'm kind of a big deal. You're going to prove that when you go through your presentation. You're going to show them you're a big deal. Don't tell people who you are. Show people who you are as you go through your presentation. Does that make sense? Questions on that? So after you get through the introduction, then you got to figure out how to keep people hooked in, how to keep people roped in. Because I had you at my hook, right? How long did that last? You guys are the Twitter age. Your attention span's like 42 seconds, and then you move on to something else. Much like some of your relationships. But anyway, that's a whole different point. You've been together forever. We're betrothed. We're going to get married. You've known each other for 2 weeks, and you already got your kid's name. Who knew? But if you talk about, you think about, don't shake your head at me. You know I'm telling the truth. You named in your head at least 5 friends that fit that mold, didn't you, when I said that? Don't even lie. You ain't got to lie to make friends. So you got to be engaging. This is a group of 7th or 8th graders. I don't remember which class this is. They look like 7th graders. In another county in Tennessee. and we're talking about social media. Have any of you ever spent time with 7th graders? Anybody in here remember when you were a 7th grader? You remember anybody keeping your attention span more than 42 seconds? No. These kids have been sitting in this auditorium at this point for 45 minutes with me. If I failed at my number one job of engaging them in what we were talking about and them having a good time, because I'm going to tell you, any of you that speak to your age group or younger, you've got to make it fun. Because you all don't have the attention span. Little kids don't have the attention span to sit through an hour-and-a-half lecture or a 3-hour class every Tuesday and Thursday night, hypothetically speaking. I see some of you going, oh, that is tomorrow. You got to think about that. You got to think about, how am I going to keep these people engaged? You don't have to stand up here and be a comedian. You don't have to be one of those people who has the perfect antidote for every single thing that's going to come your way. But you got to keep them involved and keep them entertained with why what you're talking about matters to them. True story? Now, one of the things that I'll do when I'm speaking to the group is I'll move to my point. See, I've seen some public speakers that they get up here and they'll walk across the stage and they're making points and all kinds of hand gestures and they're saying really important stuff. But because they're walking so fast and they got these big old lanky legs, or because their hands are up here, you totally miss the point because of the distraction of what they were doing. Everybody's seen those people before, right? You see a lot of those people on stage that are comedians or that they do stuff. And they've got a hilarious joke. They tell it and it falls flat on its face because they were moving when they did it or because their hands were all up here. I move to the point that I'm trying to make. And then when I'm done with that point, I'll move on to the next point and I'll talk about whatever it may be, and then I'll move to my next point. When I stop, I'm saying something I want people to hear. It's that simple for me. It works for me, and it keeps me from being the guy who does this the whole time. And I walk right, move your feet so I don't die. So you just walk in a continuous circle. You've all seen these people that they'll stand up here and they'll give a presentation, and the whole time they're talking, you're going, oh dear God, please just stop. Please, just make it stop. Move to the point and tell it like it is. I will also make eye contact. Some of you learned the last time that I make awkward eye contact. Sometimes I just make it awkward. I will really do that if somebody's being disrespectful. High school kids, middle school kids, if somebody's being disrespectful, they're doing one of these numbers, whispering to their friends, they're talking about whatever, or they have their iPad out and I can tell that they're playing Candy Crush. Oh, game on. Because I make awkward eye contact. When somebody's being disruptive to me or they're talking and I don't like what they're doing, I'll just walk over to them and I'll just stand right in front of them like Forrest, and I'll be talking to the rest of the group. But don't say anything important while you do that, because what did every one of you do when I walked up here and got right up in his grill? Y'all started looking at Forrest, didn't you? And started thinking, I wonder if I could pull that bow tie off. I don't think I could do it. I don't quite think I could handle a bow tie. He can pull that off. There ain't no way I could pull that off. So don't make an important point. Was that true? Spot on? All right. I'm just telling it like it is. Got no reason to lie to you. So move to your point. Tell it like it is. Okay? Any questions on that? The next thing I will tell you is that you have to have some sort of rhythm, some sort of flow to your presentation. If I had started this presentation with voice inflection, and then I had moved this presentation to the introduction, then I moved over to engaging the audience, then I moved over to preparation, would that make any sense whatsoever? No. I'm telling you how I make the presentation flow from start to finish. So I'm walking you from preparation through the introduction, through the things that you need to know as you go through. And it has some sort of a rhythm so far, right? Have I failed you yet? Has this been worth your time so far? All right, so see, the flow and the style is there. Another thing I'll tell you about, and that's, if you haven't caught that, that's one of the issues that I have, is I say another thing that I will tell you. That's just one of my niches. What I'm using that for is to get it right in my mind. Okay, I'm straight up telling secrets about myself. But I use that time when I say another thing that I'll tell you, I'm already working on the phrasing of the statement that I'm going to make. So like for instance, when I say another thing that I'm going to tell you is how to segue between topics. How to go from the introduction to the next piece of the pie. So if I'm talking about social media, with middle school kids, and I'm talking about Facebook. I go from Facebook to Twitter. In order to segue between Facebook and Twitter, I have to do two things. I have to change my conversation points, and I have to change my slide, right? When I change my conversation points, the slide should be changing at the end of the point that I'm making before that. So as I'm making my previous point about Facebook and so on and so forth about Facebook, I go ahead and click, let the slide start moving to the next one, so that when I'm ready to talk about the next piece, it's already there waiting. Because how many of you, when I was talking, even heard what I said at the end of that sentence when I changed slides? You didn't hear it, did you? Something moved. Hold on, what was that, rabbit? That's what every one of you do. Everybody sitting here in this room went, he changed the slide. What'd he say? That's problematic, isn't it? So pay attention to those things. Be ready for that. Because we've all had those presenters who were standing up in front of the room. You've had the presenters who stand here like this, and they tell you everything that's on their paper. You have these presenters that will stand here and they don't make eye contact but about once every 5 minutes. And then you have those presenters who go, didn't work. And they click it again and again, and then they advance like 5 slides. And then they back up 3. Some of you just thought of a professor. That's not cool. But you have those people who change slides and they go, what was I going to say about that? Oh, let's see. Using visuals. You've all had those people, right? So what I do when I finish making the point on the previous slide and I'm ready to move on and I'm ready to start talking about visuals, I go ahead and I finish talking about flow and the style of my presentation. And then I say what I have to do with my flow and my style is incorporate that into my slides. Did you catch the segue? I have to tie my flow and style, which was the previous slide, to my visuals, which is my current slide. Anything that segues those two together. All you're trying to do is just not make awkward silence in between the two and not completely change the subject. That's all you're trying to do. It's all on the same subject, just tie it all together. Everybody understand that? Make sense? All right, so tell me what some of your favorite slideshows you've ever sat through that annoyed the ever-loving crap out of you because of the way they designed their slides. Tell me some things that annoy you about visuals, about slides.
Too many words.
Too many words. Okay. Biggest pet peeve I have. Have you noticed that there is nothing noteworthy on my slides yet? Have you written anything from the slides that I put up there? What have you written? What I say, right? Because I'm full of crap. I just spit it out. You write it down. And you think because I'm wearing a uniform and because I really do that stuff I said I did, that you should write. No. You're sitting there going, oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. What would you do if my entire slideshow was on the slide, or if my entire presentation was on the slide? If I took this and had every one of those words on this slide, what would you do? You wouldn't listen to me, would you? You'd sit there and write every word that's on those slides, wouldn't you? How annoying is that? When the professor makes a point, somebody makes a point on a slide, and you're like, what'd he say? I missed it. I got the slide, but what? I missed it. If you are that inclined to know every word that's on the slide, sit here and take pictures of them as they go by. I refuse to put my slideshow on the screen. Because if I put my entire presentation, or not my slideshow, my presentation, I refuse to put my talking points on the screen. Because if I do that, there's no reason for me to be up here, is there? If I put anything on the screen, I'll make sure that what's on the screen is in bullet point format. So it has 1, 2, 3 words max. If I go over 3 words, I really didn't like it, but I felt like I needed to put it on there for some reason. And no more than 2 or 3 points per slide. Sometimes you get away with 4 if you talk about each one of them, and people are going to be writing while you talk. But don't stand here and read the slide. If I stand here and read the slide to you, how dumb do you feel? Like, really? I showed up for this? My parents are paying for this? I'm taking 12 hours to keep my scholarship for this? I'm working 3 jobs while I'm going to college for this? I have no life for this? There's no reason for that. They could have emailed the slideshow out and you'd been fine, right? So keep that in mind. What else about visuals annoys you? Too many words on the slide.
They use like a weird font with weird colors that don't match.
Okay, weird font, weird colors.
He just took what I
Okay, what were you going to say? Say it like you were going to. I want to hear it.
like too many colors.
Too many colors?
Like ugly fonts.
Like weird ones? Weird fonts? Yeah, that's pretty good. She was over here going, stop talking. Fortune PowerPoint has ever put out. Yep. And not only the transitions, they have found some way to incorporate every sound effect that PowerPoint has with the transition, and they're like that gravel parking lot in visuals. They just don't go together, right? They don't mix, they don't match. But they managed to do all of that stuff. What do you pay attention to while they're doing that? You pay attention to what's going on the screen, don't you? You don't hear anything that they say. You don't hear anything that they're putting out there. So keep that stuff in mind too. There's nothing wrong with using transitions. If you'll notice, the transitions in my slides take place during that segue period. So that when I segue over, even if there was a whoosh, it doesn't matter, right? Because I'm not saying anything important. So if you're going to use the blinds transition and make it as slow as PowerPoint will let it go, make sure that while the blinds are being opened, you're not giving the most important point of your entire talk. Because they will totally miss it. You're talking to people on a 4th grade level. You have to. You have to talk to people as if they are on a 4th grade level. And the reason for that is because most of us never really grow out of that 4th grade attention span to some degree or another. We never really grow out of that, do we? So you gotta speak to people. Don't talk down to them, but speak to them at a level that they can understand. If I stood up in front of the room and I used all sorts of big words and everything that I could find, and I tried to make sure that my grammar was on point, and you met me before in the hallway and I'm talking like a country hick, you'd be like, what? He's been in the sauce. That boy's been in grandma's cough medicine again. What is wrong with him? Be who you are when you talk to people. That's the number one thing I will tell you. Make sure that your slides portray who you are. Because you can't stand up and be somebody that you're not. Everybody's met a presenter like that, right? And you spend more time looking at them going, what the crap is he doing? Than you do actually paying attention to the words that are coming out. Remember that you're having a conversation with people. The slides are just a visual reference for them to what you're talking about. And they're a visual reference for you as the presenter if for some reason you get off track. I'm talking about visuals. Where are visuals on my power or on my outline? Make sense? Everybody understand that? Okay. So the other thing I'll tell you about visuals too, if you're speaking to a big room of people, there is nothing more annoying to me when there's a huge room of people. I'm talking thousands of people. Probably the biggest crowd I've been in front of, 2,000, 2,200, somewhere around in there. It is heart-wrenching the first time you step in front of that group and you go, uh-oh. Because there's no backing down, right? Your name's on the agenda. It's done. You are going to die today. This is actually going to happen. I'm going to meet Jesus before I ever get to eat lunch. What I try to do that helps me more than anything is I find a way to get my slides in the back of the room. If I'm in a big room where I can't see the back corners of the room, I want to at least be able to see my slides. And I put the slides strategically in the room. If I have to bring an extra projector and an extra computer and set up 2 different remotes where I have one in my pocket that I'm advancing the one in the back of the room, one in the front of it, make sure they match up. I'll go ahead and tell you that because that can be awkward. But if this room were this much bigger, I'd put one back in that corner and one back in that corner because I'm not talking to anybody right here, am I? Michael's on this side, Ashton's on this side. There's nobody in the middle. I want my slides to be behind the people that I'm talking to. So when I look up, you think I'm making eye contact with somebody behind you. And all I did was reference my slide in the back corner of the room. Okay? Something else to think about. So, in order to take your slides and produce good results with them, you have to be able to control the room. You have to be able to speak to the entire room. And I'm somewhat loud, if you didn't notice. I'll go ahead and fill you in. What are you laughing at? Boy, if I had feelings, that would hurt. So, I always tell people, speak to the back of the room, but don't yell at the front of the room. If I'm standing up here giving my presentation, and every time I come around the corner, I get right up in her face, do you know how many times she fantasized about punching me in the throat? Probably twice, just in that last 5 seconds, if I had to guess. Everybody knows how annoying that is, right? If you spit when you talk, and I do, I don't stand right in front of people. What are you backing up for? She got a face shield and everything. Helmet, shoulder pads. It's spit, not hail. Crying out loud. So I don't get right up in front of people when I talk. I have fun with it when I go to middle schools and high schools though, because I'll stand right in front of the front row and I'll say, now you people in the back, you'll have to excuse me, I spit when I talk, and I try to enunciate and just make it sound like I'm spitting all over the people up front. People up front, they're hunkered down, I ain't even spitting at them. But have fun with it. If you do, and you know some people might get rained on during your presentation, fix that, okay? If you drank an entire gallon of coffee before your presentation, fix your breath. Because the first 8 rows will know about it. Especially if you spit coffee while you talk, the front row now has polka dotted shirts on. That ain't fair to nobody. Now you got a dry cleaning bill you're going to have to pay as a result of it. So make sure that you own that room. Make sure that you know your weaknesses when you stand up in front of people. And one of my weaknesses is that I am too loud. I've caught myself at least 3 times during this presentation bringing my voice down. I know some of you don't believe that, but I have brought my volume down at least 3 times while I've been talking. I can stand in front of that auditorium of 600 people and not even use a microphone. I know, tough to believe, but it's true. It's part of it. With your voice power, make sure that you speak clearly. Don't stand up front of the room and have a conversation like you normally have people standing over here on the side yonder way. You stand over here having a conversation, and I'm standing over here and I'm talking to her, and I'm not speaking very clearly. I'm kind of stringing my words together. To them, I sound horrible. They've already tuned out over there. To you all, you're just going, why are you so dumb? Right? At least get close to proper grammar. It ain't got to be perfect, but you got to act like you got some learning about you. All right? You can't get up here and stand up here in front of the room and everything you say and stuff at the end of every sentence. You can't stand up here and talk to people about your topic and stuff and everything you say and stuff at the end of it you say and stuff. Because you lost the crowd in the first 10 seconds, right? And things and such, because there are so many of them that are out there. So many presenters I've seen do that. Have you seen people do that? Yeah. It's annoying, isn't it? You just sit there and you go. And I've actually done this to presenters. I'll sit back in the back of the room, or I'll sit wherever I'm at in the class and I go. Yeah. And I'm counting how many times they do it. By the end of it, it's 111. I had a buddy of mine who started teaching some, and when he first started teaching, was his. So when he would get up to talk, and he would talk about the topic he's talking about, and he would say something like, control your rhythm of the presentation, and every time he would do it, I'm sitting in the back making tick marks. I walked up to him after class and I said, good job, 111. Walked away. What? 111. What are you talking about? 111 and-ums in a 30-minute presentation. People catch that stuff, don't they? And you totally lose them. You totally lose track of it. Speaking of losing stuff, I lose this multiple times. It typically has to live in my bubble. If it lives in my bubble, I'll find it. You've probably caught me 2 or 3 times turning around and finding it. So if you have a presentation remote and you're one of those people who fiddles, you're nervous, click the slide, set the remote down, and make your point. While you're making your point, make sure that your hand gestures are below your face. Okay? So when I am talking to you, if my hands are up here, does that affect the volume of my voice? Does that affect the way that you read my mouth and the way that you see the words that I'm making? Absolutely it does. And you look like a moron, Brandon, when you do this. So get your hands down. Your most important points that you will make are with your elbows tucked into your side and your hands directly out in front of you. You can be like a little baby T-Rex. Keep your hands right out front. It's hard to scratch your nose. It just started itching. But keep your hands out in front of you. Make the points that you're going to make. If you're talking about something going down, point down. Talking about something going up, go up. But it ain't got to be like making it rain or nothing, all right? Keep that in mind. Control the rhythm of that presentation. When I get ready to make a point, I walk to that point, I told you that. I start talking really, really fast, and as I get built up to that point, and I'm getting everybody really into what I'm saying, because the faster I talk, the more of you look at me, because you're going, what in the crap is he fixing to do? Then I make my point, and I stop. and I give you 3 seconds to absorb that point in. If you're Shark Tank style, get up, build up to your point, get everything right where it's going to go, build it up, make the point, stop. 1 second, Shark Tank style. 3 seconds, classroom style. Because most of the people in a classroom setting are going to be writing what you said. Give them time to get the first part of what they were going to write, get their thought framed up. Shark Tank, 3 seconds is 3 seconds of dead air. Anybody who has ever done video editing or television will tell you 3 seconds, you killed the whole presentation. Okay? So keep that in mind. That's something else that you got to think about. And make sure that you're projecting to the entire room as you're talking. Now, one of the things that most presenters really fear more than anything else is at the end of their presentation saying, okay, does anyone have any questions? How many of you have spoken in public before? You've spoken in front of a group. Okay? Did you fear the question and answer part of it? You didn't fear it at all? Your initials BS? No. Oh, okay. All right. A lot of people will fear that part of the presentation. They'll fear the question and answer part because they're like, I don't know, boy, if they throw something at me that I don't. You don't have to know all the answers, gang. Just because you're supposed to be the expert and you're standing up in front of the room teaching the class or giving the lecture or giving a presentation, you don't have to have all the answers. So when somebody asks a question, I'll give you a couple of tips. If somebody on this side of the room asks me a question, I will paraphrase the question back, but I don't paraphrase it to them. I paraphrase the question, I say, what I believe you're asking is, why do I move my hands like a baby T-Rex? Notice I just came over here and I told them what your question was, and I paraphrased it to make sure I got it right. Because if I didn't, I need to come back to it and understand what they were asking me. But if I did, then I told all of you what the question was without saying, what the question was, what'd you say the question was again? You've all seen presenters do that too, haven't you? You're going to have people who will challenge you. You don't have to have all the answers. I am a firm believer that people who sit in a class and learn in a classroom environment can learn just as much from the other people sitting in the room as the person standing in front of the room. We've all had those classes, haven't we? We've all had those sessions where I picked up the biggest nugget of information I got. The whole class was from somebody sitting 3 rows down from me, or 3 seats down from me. Not from the presenter, but what did the presenter do? They guided that discussion and allowed everyone to learn from that point. So just because you're the presenter doesn't mean you're the only one that's allowed to teach anybody anything while you're here. And you're going to learn that in just a minute as we talk through things. But if you ask me a question that I don't know and you ask me about percentages of what percentage of your presentation's success is body language, you know what I would do? I would say, I really don't know. Michael, do you have any idea? Is that something you guys fool with? Because there are other experts sitting in the room with you, whether you believe it or not. Okay? So keep that in mind. You're going to have those people who challenge you, and all they want to do is cause you grief. All they want to do is mess with you. They may want to heckle you. They may just try to ask you something. They may play Stump the Wizard and try to ask you the one question they know that nobody's going to ask, that nobody's going to have the answer to. I'm going to give you 4 things you need to do with those people when they ask those really weird questions. The first thing is, with any question, listen. Truly, genuinely, actively, underline actively, listen. Because when someone is talking to me, I engage them with eye contact. If you've ever stood in front of a room, you know how annoying it is for people to be doing this the whole time and just glancing up at you once in a while, right? Everybody knows what that feels like? Why am I here? Why are you here if that's all you're going to do the whole time, right? So actively listen. Look at them while they're talking to you. If you struggle with checking out somebody's hairdo, ladies, you figured out somebody's got a do on the other side of the room that you really, really like, and they're sitting over here, and I'm talking to this guy, and every time he's asking me a question, I keep looking over here at the do that I really want to pay attention to. Or fellas, if you figure out there's a do over there that you like to look at, don't do that. Actively look at people. Maintain eye contact with somebody while they're asking you questions. Get excited about the question. If you ask me a question, I'm going to say, yes, ma'am, go right ahead. And I'm going to be right here, leaned in toward you, making direct eye contact. Now, this is really, really awkward because you don't have a question. But if you had one, this would be super cool to you because you would know I was hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth. Right? Second thing is empathize with them. Put yourself in their shoes. I usually say there are no dumb questions, just dumb people who ask questions. So you're going to have people ask you questions that are answers you've already given in your presentation, but you've got to pay attention to that, just like you do the question that is the most resounding question on the face of the earth. So when somebody asks me one of those questions, I say, yes, ma'am. Okay, so when we talk about voice power, I say don't stand right in front of people if you spit when you talk. Did you catch a little bit of it just come out right then? No, it's not raining over there, it's raining over here. I didn't know. So I truly need to empathize and put myself in her shoes. The last thing I want to say is, did you not catch that 3 slides back? What did I just do? I shut her down, didn't I? She is not going to listen to a word I say the rest of this presentation. And guess what? 70% of the rest of the room is not going to listen to a word I say. You all don't even have to like her. You don't have to know her. You don't have to agree with her that Donald Trump's going to be the best presidential candidate. That is not my personal opinion. Let me go ahead and tell you that. But you don't have to agree with what she's saying. If I shut her down, I just told you that I don't give a crap what anybody else in this room thinks. I am the most important person here. Thou shalt not mess with me, right? The third thing you do is you ask them. Was that your question? So when I walk over here and I say, I believe what you're asking me is, why do I talk like a baby T-Rex with my hands out here? Was that your question? Okay. And I answered. If it's a tough question, in your answer, paraphrase the question. So my answer to that question would be, the reason that I talk like a baby T-Rex with my hands out is because my hands are all up here. This is just really awkward for everybody. Nobody likes that. Do you see how I paraphrased the question inside of the answer? That's really important if you do any sort of television interview. If as part of your presentation you are on video, the video camera does not hear any of you sitting here when you ask me a question. What, 40% volume of what we would hear you in the room, would you say, Ashlyn? It's less than half the volume strength that the rest of the people in the room hear you. The camera doesn't hear you that well because the microphone's on the front of the camera, it is aimed at me, and typically they're a noise-canceling microphone. So what that noise-canceling microphone does is it pans out, omnidirectional, so it pans out, it grabs all the volume in here, you people are going to be talking to the wall. It's not going to hear you that well. So make sure that you paraphrase the question inside of the answer so that I just gave you the question and the answer right in the camera. Make sense? Any questions on that while we're talking about it? Any questions on anything that we've covered up to this point? We're almost done. Have you learned something beneficial so far? Have you picked up anything that's going to help you? I will tell you this, that, did you see what I did there? I will tell you this. What was I doing while I said I will tell you this? I was phrasing, I was changing the slide, and I was phrasing the next comment in my head. I will tell you this about your presentations. The most beneficial thing you will do is critique yourself. How many of you are your worst critic? Some of you have that one person in your life that's like your worst critic, right? But most of us, we are our own worst critic. If you really want to make yourself better, video yourself, go back and watch it. It drives me crazy to watch these things when they post them. It drives me crazy because I sit and I nitpick every little thing that I did. I watched Michael's branding presentation, okay? So when I watch the branding presentation, I look at it and I'm watching the content. He's looking at it, he's watching every little move he makes, every time he looked like he was picking his nose because of the angle of the camera. He sees all sorts of stuff I didn't even notice. I caught the presentation. I was there for the content, okay? You watch it for the content once and then go back and watch it for the presentation style. Don't try to watch both at once. You'll totally confuse yourself. If you are in part of a session that has surveys, always, always, always ask for those surveys. You will know if you hit the nail on the head with your audience or not based off of those surveys. I typically get good surveys back. I've had a couple of bad surveys, and based on the comments, they tell me, is it something I did or is it something in the presentation that just didn't fit what these people needed to hear? Maybe they picked the wrong breakout session to come to. And that happens a lot. People just pick the wrong session. And those are the people who sit back there in their chair and they sit like this the whole time because they're too lazy to get up and go to another breakout session. They'll just sit in the back of the room or they'll be on their computer the whole time because what they're doing is so much more important than what you're talking about. Everybody's had experience with those. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. Make sure that you're watching yourself teach and you're critiquing yourself. If you are speaking to folks your age or younger, especially if it's part of a conference that has a hashtag, go back and search the hashtag. Figure out what people were taking pictures of. Figure out what people were tweeting. Figure out what people were saying on social media about it. Because if every other presenter who stood up in front of the room has their picture taken 5 or 6 times and they're tweeted out, and we are so lucky to get to hear from Brandon Smith today. Please don't tweet me, that's not what I'm going for here. But we are so lucky to get to have this presentation. If everybody else that gets up there has that and you don't, you missed the mark. If you're in a room of 500 people and there were 10 tweets about every other presenter, not you, either you missed the mark or you could have possibly been the best speaker that they had because they were paying more attention to you than taking pictures of you. And the last thing you can do is you can ask your friends. Don't ask your friends that tell you what you want to hear. Ask your friends who will truly give you their honest opinion. Every once in a while in your presentations, throw people a curveball. How many of you noticed you were inside my nose during that last slide? Anybody catch that? Oh, that's awkward, right? So every once in a while, throw people a curveball. Give them something to giggle about. It doesn't have to be the funniest joke on the face of the earth. Just give them something to break the monotony of sitting and listening to you talk. Because how many of you, in 50 minutes that we've been talking, you got tired of hearing me talking at some point or another? Raise your hand. And the rest of you are lying. See? Telling you straight up. I don't care how good the presenter is. 15 minutes, I need a mental break. So build some of that stuff into your presentation. Build in a quick little 30-second video clip. Don't go over 1 to 2 minutes. If you put a 9-second video clip in a 12-minute presentation, it's not a clip. That is the presentation. Okay? Be very cognizant of that. So I want you to tell me, think about the best and the worst presenters that you've ever had. And my goal is 5-10 minutes max and you'll be out of here. Okay, fair enough? So think about the best and the worst presenters you've ever had. Do not call them by name because this is being videoed and they might watch this. Especially if they are a professor and your grade, your graduation grade depends upon it. But think about the best and the worst presenters you've had. Let's talk about the best presentations you've ever seen. What did they do that captivated you, that was the best presentation that you've ever sat through? Give me some examples of the best speakers you've had, best teachers you've had. Energy, all right? Have I given that? I didn't really kind of stand up here and tell you all that I didn't get to bed until 12:30 last night. Didn't give you my sob story, right? I'm here for you. So you got to give that back to your audience. That's a great point. Were you going to say something, sir?
I wasn't, but
Since you brought it up.
if they really are excited about what they're talking about, because sometimes it seems like they're just up there just to do it.
Yeah.
Because they were asked to do it. So,
Yeah.
You know.
Or because they're getting paid to do it.
Right.
That's the one that drives me crazy when people do that. And you can tell they're not paying me enough to do this job. And you have professors that are making like $200,000 a year to give 2 lectures a week. And they're like, they're not paying me enough for this, so we're going to mutter through it. I don't really want to talk to you all about sexual harassment, but I'm going to. You know, we've all sat through those. We all know the boring topics are boring. We all know the mandatory topics are mandatory. There's no reason to stand up and say, well, I don't really want to do this. I want to do this as much as you do, but we might as well get through it. So, straight to your point, sir. Very good. Anybody else? What are the best things you've seen from a presenter that you really, really like?
Simplicity.
Simplicity. Okay, how so?
Just making everything like straight to the point and like your slide is not overdoing it or what you're talking about.
Yeah, just talk to me. Tell me what you want me to know. And don't give me a whole bunch of crap behind you while you're telling me what you want me to know. Right? You've seen those people who struggle for words. Who try to get the words. Yeah, that's a big one. Anybody else? Best presentations you've seen? Good tips, things that you like. I like people who can just randomly break out in song in the middle of their presentation. You don't want me to do that. I'm not a horrible singer, but I ain't a good one either. But those people who will just give you that mental break and do something totally stupid, you're like, okay, where did that come from? I'm going to speak to Greek Life here in just a few minutes to the, I guess, the new pledges or the freshman group over there. And every once in a while in the middle of the presentation, I just throw them a curveball. And everybody in the room goes, what? Even people who are on their phone will go, what? Or if somebody gets up in the middle of the presentation to go to the bathroom, oh, I love those people. They hate me for the rest of their life, but I love them. Because I'm like, sir, excuse me, sir, number 1 or number 2? Okay, all right, I'm just checking. I need to know when we need to come check on you in the bathroom. I'm just checking on you. And then when they come back in, be like, everything good? Okay, cool. You do that in the middle of a presentation, you just hooked them for the rest of the presentation. You know why? Because they will pee on themselves before they get up and walk out of that auditorium in the middle of you talking. Everybody's seen that before, right? Everybody's been in that presentation where somebody called somebody out and you're like, I really needed to pee, but I think I'm good. No, I'm good, sir, thanks. Appreciate it anyway. Everybody's seen those people. What are some of the worst things that you've seen people do?
Trying to be too funny.
Yeah,
Charismatic.
people that laugh at their own jokes.
Shut up.
That's just in life.
Just tell me, do what?
So that's just life.
Yeah, well, there are some of those people who will stand in normal conversation and do that. But yeah, people who try to be somebody that they're not.
Yeah, he's like that right now. Like
Who, Michael?
No.
Oh, okay. I was,
The person I'm
I was just
talking
asking.
about. No.
Yeah, so those people who are kind of self-absorbed and they want to be the center of attention no matter what, yeah. Huh?
Yeah, just shut up.
You talking to me
No.
or to them?
The person.
Are you sure? There's a look on your face that I need to shut up. We'll come back to that. She just tells it like it is, doesn't she? What's up? Is it? That's what I claim too if I had to put. All right, so give me another worst case scenario. We'll come check on you in 10 minutes. She can still hear you. She's right around the corner. We should all go out there. Give me another worst case scenario, what people try to do.
Monotone. They have no inflection.
Oh yeah, that drives me crazy. Oh, it makes me want to take a nap right now just thinking about some of those people, right? When they stand up in front of the room, and that goes back to the energy. Which of you said energy? Somebody was talking about that. When you're talking about giving that energy, if I just stood up here in front of the room and I gave my presentation, especially, this drives me crazy. People who give their presentations sitting down. Really? You are that lazy? They only pay you $200,000 a year, so you got to sit down because they don't pay you $220,000. Everybody knows those kind of people, though, right? That they'll sit here and they'll give their whole presentation, or they'll be reading through the book, going through what they're talking about in an auditorium full of folks. It's another good point. Yes, ma'am.
Or they'll sit at the desk and read, speak in the microphone. Do not like
Oh, you can't take that? You want me to do that for you?
No.
I just want to illustrate a point. I would just like to say that as we go through this presentation today, I would like for you to pay really close attention to me. How many of you have already zoned out? Right? And her blood pressure just hit stroke level. She was like, you are a smart ace, sir. Except she had a couple other letters on the end of hers. What else have you seen?
Injure themselves.
Injure them. This has a story behind it, friends. Hold that thought. So let's hear this one.
It was in high school, and there's a presenter walking across the stage, and they didn't realize where the end of the stage stopped.
Had that Homer Simpson moment in life, didn't they?
Yeah, it was one leg too, so they just kind of tumbled.
Yeah. You got to be careful with that stuff. That goes back to knowing the room too, doesn't it? Know the room, know where you are, know what you're talking about. Know if there is a pit at the front of the stage that you're not just going to fall to the floor right down below it. I'm really cautious too. Like when I speak in Derryberry Auditorium. Michael's been on the stage. Ashton, I think you and Jacqueline probably been on the stage at some point or another. I'm just guessing that stage is really super high compared to other stages. Like I walk up to it and it hits me right here. I am 6 feet tall. That's problematic for me. So I'm really cautious to make sure that if I'm getting on or off the stage, I sit down before I get down. I don't try to just jump off the stage. Because as I get older, my bones are a little weaker. And if I hit just right, and everybody hears that, because my bones snapped, something about the presentation stopped when the ambulance got here, didn't it? Yeah, very true. What else? Any other biggies that you absolutely hate? I hate when people do this.
Misspell words.
Spell words.
Misspell words.
Oh, misspell
For,
words, like on the slide?
opposites, yeah.
Yeah, grammar, punctuation's another big one for me. I don't typically use punctuation in my slides, but I'm glad you brought that up. Because if you use punctuation, if you give a quote, Like my favorite quote on the face of the earth is from Maya Angelou. People will never remember what you said. People will never remember what you did. But people will always remember what? How you made them feel, right? People will never remember what you said. Just to get you past that. So think about that. That punctuation has to be in there. Because if I just said people never remember what you said, people never remember what you did, they'll always remember how you made them feel. Period. Or not. It changes the meaning of what you're putting on the slides. Thank you, that's a good point. Anybody else?
Redundancy,
Say it.
being redundant.
Being redundant, saying the same thing over and over.
I mean, like if you want to make a point, like, and make sure that people remember it, it's fine, I guess. But like having the same slide 4 times and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the redundancy of having that same slide 4 times, like me repeating what you just said, I'm repeating it for the sake of the people watching the video. But if you continually go back to that same point, you only really had one point in your entire 1-hour presentation. You failed, right? So keep that in mind too. That's a good point. If you need to say it again, those things that I use, like I said, when I make my point, I move to the point. I talk to the people I need to be talking to. If there's one particular group, like if I have middle school students and I have girls on one side of the room, boys on one side of the room, if I'm talking to the girls, I will say, ladies, you need to understand. I move to them. I stay kind of right here in this space. I'm going to wiggle around a little bit, but I'm not going to be all over the place or walking in a circle. I speed up as I get closer to that point. If I'm really going to say something that I want to matter to you, I get louder and I get faster. Then I make my point. You got it, didn't you? I don't need to come back and say it 8 more times. That is a very good point that you made, Jeff. Thank you. All right. Anything else that you can think of? Anything anybody else wants to share? Everybody just ready to go to the grill and eat? That's a good idea you have. I'm cool like that. This didn't happen by accident. All right. So hopefully you've learned something beneficial tonight. Hopefully you have learned something that will make you a better presenter. The biggest thing I will caution you on with this is don't try to be somebody else. Do you. Be you. Do what you do, like you do, how you do, why you do. And make sure that it fits the audience you're trying to speak to. Don't ever try to emulate somebody else. You can pick up a joke. You can pick up a punchline here and there. That's great. But don't ever try to take this and make your presentations exactly like mine, because it isn't going to work for you. Sometimes it doesn't work for me. I'll just tell you straight up honest. So be who you are, do what you do, and make people know why you're there. Make people know that you care about all these tips and tricks that we do. Okay? If you ever have any questions on the bottom of the agenda, or the outline, if you would, come up here and get one on your way out. It is 2 pages, and I'll put some on both sides of the aisle. But on these agendas, or on these outlines, I've said that about a dozen times, on these outlines at the bottom of it, it has my email, it has my cell phone number, and it has my Twitter handle. I'm not telling you you need to follow me on Twitter, but if you ever need to get in contact with me, that's one way you can do it. I actually do check direct messages. If you need, like if you guys are working on a Shark Tank presentation, or you're working on a really big presentation, and you want some help, I don't care a bit to come by campus, meet you in the library one day, watch you run through it, help you with that. Just, you can send me a text, you can call me, whatever. I despise voicemail. So if you don't get me, please text me. Tell me who you are and what you need, and I promise I will help you in any way that I can, as will Michael and the folks over in the makerspace. Any other questions you have, I'll be here for a few minutes before I get ready to head over to the nursing building. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Be safe.